Really excited to be joined on another episode of the Film Room with Georgia Amoore from, I'm still not used to saying University of Kentucky yet, but she's coming to us live from Lexington, Georgia. How are you doing?
I'm good. You might be the first person to say that, though. I haven't done any media where they say
Yeah.
Georgia A from the University of Kentucky, so
It's got
congrats.
it. I mean, it feels weird to me, so I'm sure it feels even weirder to you. I can't really, I'm trying to wrap my head around it, but what has that been like for you, kind of stepping on campus the last couple of weeks and getting a feel for being in Lexington?
Yeah, I mean it's been a challenge, but it's been good. Obviously any transfer is a challenge, regardless if you're with your coach or not. But it's been good because a bunch of new girls, a new area, new facility, so I'm just getting used to everything. And honestly, it's making time go quick. I don't know if it's the senioritis or the change, but it's already September, the end of September, and I feel like I just got here in July, so it's
Yeah.
going.
It's been a wild summer, and I'm even more wild for you, I'm sure. But like, I have no idea how like we're like a month and a week from the season, which
Yeah.
just doesn't feel real.
Mm-mm.
But like you mentioned, in terms of like obviously being a fifth year senior, being here with Kenny still, kind of taking on more of. I'm sure you had one already as a leadership role last year, but like I feel like it's an even higher level this year, right? There's we were talking about this before we hopped on, but like it is a very different team. This is not like just bringing Virginia Tech to Kentucky. So what has that been like? Obviously, you're somebody who's been in the system for your entire career, kind of getting to showcase that to people who haven't been in that.
Yeah, I mean, definitely a challenge, but when I transferred, that's what I said. I wanted a challenge, and I'm going to get it
Yeah.
all year. This was probably the least suspecting challenge I thought I was going to have because
Hmm.
I thought, intellectually, I wasn't thinking, I'm going to have to teach. Like, I'm going to
Yeah.
have to be so confident in myself in this process that I'm going to have to teach other people. And I was just having this conversation. I mean, we brought in people who were the best at their previous schools. So now it's like, how we're going to make that gel, how we're going to make that form. Some people have never played at Coach Brooks' style of pace. The way he plays is very different to anyone else. So yeah, it's been a challenge, but it's been good. Slowly getting used to it. It was a bit rough the first couple of days, but now we're in official practice and people are getting used to it. People are picking up on things, even like Tiana Key like did not have opportunities at UNC, whether it be injury or just because she wasn't being played. She has been phenomenal. Like it's
Yeah.
just different how the different environments can help, project you. And I'm excited for the season because we have great pieces being put together right now.
Yeah, no, I think that's such a great understanding too, because exactly like you're saying, like obviously everything can kind of play a part, but like just where you play and how you get prioritized and how you fit in matters so much. And I think that's what was fun in watching the transfers come together. Because obviously we know what you can do in Kenny's system, but like, I've watched Jordan Obi for a couple years and I was like, because I think part of not saying that you guys were obviously still a very good team last year, but I think like, part of what was tough is like you can't replace DeAsia Greg, you can't replace Taylor Soul, like having that kind of versatile forward who really connects things and keeps things moving. Like I think Jordan could really bring that this year, which is going to be exciting.
Yeah.
Um, I wanted to ask you too, what have you thought of Clara Silva so far? That's
Because it was unreal. Oh my gosh. Like it may have taken her a week to get her feet under her, rightfully
yeah,
so, because, jet lag, different pace, physicality. But like she's an elite level passer out of the post.
yeah,
And she's just so smooth. She never looks rushed. She never looks intimidated. I don't know what it is about that European game, but she's come in pretty well prepped. Obviously she is still a freshman, so I'm sure she's going to hit a lull at some point or come game time. It's going to be difficult, but I've been so impressed with her. Um, and the minute that she gets some of that confidence or some of that cockiness, like it's going to be next level. But she has glimpses of some really good IQ plays, and I
yeah,
just don't think we get that often with freshmen coming in.
yeah. Especially at the post, I feel like it's really hard to find that. So like, and again, talking about Kenny's system, like so much of it is like you gotta. I think that's one of the things that went underrated with Liz last year is like she really
Mhm.
continued to improve as somebody who like could be like a hub of the offense, make those plays. So I'm gonna be fascinated to watch that continue to grow with Clara Squared.
Yeah.
But going off that too, I think that's one of the things that I'm like most interested to talk about, and obviously we'll dive into it in film a little bit. But like, um, of course, there's the aspect of just like, and probably most importantly, like, I mean, you and Liz were tight, and like seeing that injury obviously sucks, right? There's not anything you can do about it, but in terms of what that did for your play and how much that impacted things for you, and also moving forward, like having to learn just completely new screening partners after
Yeah.
that's what was your bread and butter for
Yep.
4.5 years, like what has that been like so far, kind of getting a grasp on that? Because I mean, just watching again, going back and watching the last 4 games, I was like, Jesus, this is like it felt like you were storming the beaches of Normandy every time you ran a pick and roll. So it was like,
Yeah.
what has that process been like for you and kind of getting accustomed to that?
Yeah, I mean, with Liz and I, like everyone knew the two-man game was coming. You just simply couldn't stop it because we had so many options. And I didn't realize it up until I started working at Kentucky with these other posts. Like Liz was so good at kind of manipulating what she wanted that it made me
Yeah.
think I was dropping dimes, and vice versa, because maybe she didn't want to like beat up in the post, so she would come and set a baseline screen, or she would set a middle screen so she could have an easy jumper. Right now, I think Clara Strack kind of sitting behind Liz and watching that this year, like I'm trying to put the confidence into her. Like I read you just as much as you read me. Like it's okay to demand the ball. It's okay to like screen and want to roll or want to pop to the three. Like you control me as much as I can control you.
Hmm.
And I think that might be difficult for someone young like her, for seeing me a fifth year who, I mean, we excelled in pick and roll last year, so it might be intimidating trying to step into that position. I don't want to say replace because Claire and Liz are different, but it's kind
Yeah.
of still the same position. So building confidence in that, and that's only going to happen with experience. Like we can watch as much film as we can, but unless we're talking about it and working on it daily, it's not going to happen. And even with Clara Silva, she rolls differently. She has her different spots that she likes, and Tiani Key, I've been doing a bit of pick and pop with her. Sometimes she goes to the three, so I got to be really in tune with who is screening me, what they want. It's a lot more challenging because Liz, we just read each other like a book. Now it's like I got three other people screening me, and now it's like they're all so different.
Yeah.
So that's been like fun to watch evolve during practices. But yeah, I mean, it's obviously a vital part of our offense.
Yeah.
So I can't wait to see how it evolves this year. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm excited for that too, because like you mentioned, I think so much of the last 2 years has been you growing and evolving as a point guard, right? And like, um, I think so much more goes into being a point guard than just like being able to pass the ball. It's like you got to be able to like set things and get people in the right spots. And I think especially now, like you're talking about, like I think that's kind of going to be the biggest growing stage for you is like, all right, how can I become not just somebody who's really able to create, but like, all right, I settle things down. I get things, facilitated. I get things moving where they need to. Because that's just, I mean, that's the hardest part to grow in as a playmaker, right? So it's going to be really fun to watch that for you. Um, I wanted to ask too, kind of going off that. I know I've heard you talk a lot about like just how different Australia's development system is, and obviously, I mean, it's something I'm aware of. I was talking about with Georgia Woolley the other day from Syracuse, and I like obviously people can realize like, okay, it's not AAU, but also I think it's just very different in terms of how it teaches fundamentals and builds players base up. But that's
Yeah.
what's so interesting because like obviously if I'd never heard your accent before, uh, I wouldn't have known you were an Australian guard because
Yeah.
you very much do not play like a lot of other Australian guards. And I
No.
feel like obviously part of that is Kenny and being able to work with him. But
Mhm.
where did that kind of first get instilled in you? Because again, like the movement, the off dribble shot making is not like a typical, what you're seeing from an
Australian
Australian
thing.
guard. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, obviously a lot of it came from Coach Brooks. I mean, who I was freshman year is definitely not who I am right now. It's
Yeah.
crazy. But I would say, like growing up in the juniors, like it's and people wouldn't know this. I was kind of known as just being like pesky on D and like passing.
Hmm.
Barely shot it. And if I did, it probably was a bad shot. It just did not have good form. On like the national teams I played with, like I would push the ball up the floor and it was always a pass space cut. So I would just
Yeah.
be spacing the corner, holding the corner, picking up full court on defense. And even when I had a little stint in China a couple of months ago, I was face guarding. So it's like my role for that is very different to like the American role I have. But when I was in a program, it was called National Performance Program. It was like MPP.
Hmm.
I think I was maybe like 15. My coach Justin Schuler was like, "Do you know why you got picked for that?" And I was like, "No, honestly, I have no clue." And he was like, "Because you're one on one, like you have a great ability one on one to create space, and it's like a hooper." So I guess that's kind of where it sparked from, and I didn't really have much development in that, but I guess I showed enough potential in that area, and I think ever since then it's just grown from there. Yeah.
No, absolutely. And I think that's a big part of your game we're going to talk about too with the isolation.
Mhm.
Because again, I think a lot of people know you for can make threes and big time in pick and roll, but I think probably to me your biggest skill is what you do in isolation. Like
Mhm.
you're so good at being able to switch hunt, being able to pick things out like that. And again, like when you talk about where the game's at and where it's headed, that's it. Um, Going off that too, though, like you talked about with spending some time in China with the national team, what was that experience like for you? Because I was not able to get access to the games, but I do know it was very different for you in terms of role, like you mentioned. So
Yeah.
how was what was that feeling out process like, and kind of getting to go through that and experience something different?
Yeah, I mean, it was great because first of all, I mean, you have head coach Sandy Brondello and her system, and obviously the Liberty has been the team this season, so it was kind of cool
Yeah,
to like see that and play that. But she didn't coach that trip. We had one of the assistants coach, but mind you, I'm playing with girls I've grew up watching. You know, we had Kayla George,
yeah,
Aces championship, has a ring. I'm playing with Lauren Jackson. I grew up. Lauren Jackson's been an Opal longer than I've been alive, which is pretty
yeah,
crazy. But to
yeah,
be with her and see how she operates was pretty sick. And I could go on and on about the other girls that came on that trip. But yeah, I knew going into it, my role was going to be so different than what it is in college. You know, as you said, like the Australian system, like you don't really see flashy stuff like you do in college. It's very much run the plays and use your strengths. And yeah, I was picking up pretty much essentially full court. I was pushing the ball as quick as I could in transition and trying to hit spot shots. Like there wasn't much isolation. There wasn't much run the play through the point guard. Like it was very team involved, and I loved that because I hadn't had that in however many years I've had it. But it's good because I think it was a good test to me to see how I could fit and how I could adjust to what another team required from me. I know that who I have been in college is not what I'm going to be in the pro, and maybe I have the good skill sets to adjust to whatever is needed, but at least my mind is open to anything. Um, I wasn't mad that the ball wasn't in my hand for 22 seconds before I had to make some kind of
yeah,
shot. Um, but yeah, like what I guess it taught me whatever is needed or whatever is required. Like I can very much mold into it. But like you said, the games were hard to get because it was an experience for sure. Like,
yeah.
and
Elaborate.
I
What do you mean? Like
mean,
how so?
like I knew this too because I spent some time in the junior Australian team. But like you go from college where you get your ankles taped and you get adjusted pre-game and you get everything handed to you. Like no, we had to tape our own ankles. We had to make sure everything was fine. Where in China they wouldn't really let us eat foods that you would normally eat that weren't like thoroughly cooked or
Yeah,
so it's like different diets and you're in the most rural part of China at halftime everyone lights up their cigarettes and starts smoking and
that's
it's
wild.
haze and we had like 12 girls on our team and we all had 3 fouls. Like we won the first 2 games, lost the last one because I'm just saying the officiating was just a little different, a
Yeah,
little different, but it's just crazy. Like just it's the adversity. Like you have to just cop it on the chin and keep going with it.
yeah.
That's the best thing that international basketball teaches you is just got to keep going. Like it happens.
Yeah, yeah, it's FIBA rules are different, man. Like it takes a lot of getting used to for sure. Um, but I mean that goes right into the next part too, because like you mentioned, in terms of getting a feel for the next level, I know that you took some time to really think about that and what you wanted to do this coming year. And I mean, just as someone myself, like I thought you were somebody who should be a lottery pick if you went out this last year. So what was decision making process like for you in terms of figuring out what that was going to look like? And I know obviously if you were going to come back, it was going to be with Kenny, which
Yeah.
understandable considering how much you guys gel and how much you get better every year. But like, did you get any feedback on what coming out would look like? Did what was kind of like figuring out like what it would look like for you and what would make sense?
Yeah. I mean, I wasn't really listening to anybody. It was me, and that's why it
Yeah,
took so long. And obviously, it's a uncharted territory for me because it's just like so hard to think or feel how the league works out. Like coming out of
yeah,
college, like, you don't really know. But I think the biggest thing for me is like I always knew with Coach Brooks I was going to get better, and I do think in some aspects I can become more consistent, and I got to learn how to play against women. Like with some of the moves I do, like there's like little things, tiny little things I got to get better at. But I think my biggest jump that I want to take is intellectually.
hmm
Um, and I think this is a great step for me because, as I said, I mean, we said this off air, but like the player coach role, I kind of want to step into. Like, I got to be able to know how to convey messages to other people, as well as being confident in myself. So I think it's a great opportunity this year to try and step into that as much as a leader I already was, take an even bigger leap, and take that responsibility and just become smarter. Because not that I wasn't smart, I think I made good plays last year and I think I made good reads, but I think just the mental aspect of the game is always somewhere where you can grow. Um, so yeah, that was the biggest advantage that I could see staying.
No, absolutely, and I think that it's good to hear because, like, I agree with you on a lot of those aspects, like, I think the next step for you is continuing to grow in that mold and, like, making that extra 10%, like, okay, if, um and we'll get into it, especially in looking at your finishing, like, you took a huge leap this last year in terms of, getting inside the arc and playing
Mhm.
with that, but I think there's an even higher level, like, if you take this, like, okay, playing with pace and getting into the mid-range a little bit more and working with that, because I think again, so often people think threes and layups and that's it. But like, especially for you, I think being able to manipulate all areas of the court is going to be so big for yourself, but also opening up passing windows.
Yeah,
Um,
and it's crazy too because growing up, like we were taught key or three.
yeah.
Obviously, key is lane, but key or three, and now the mid range game is coming a massive comeback. I'm watching the WNBA finals, and Courtney Williams kills that. She
Yes.
kills the mid range. So it's
So
like
good.
that's what I meant by consistency. Like the mid range shouldn't just be like, oh, I can't pass it. Like let me just put it up. Like no, like mid range got to be like dead eye. So that's definitely part of my game I'm trying to work on right now.
Definitely. Couple more things before we dive into film. Um, what would you right now highlight as your biggest strengths as a player?
I would say obviously my ability to get off shots on the 3 point line, my explosiveness that I have with that. But yeah, like pick and roll, my ability to pass into the post.
Hmm.
I think, watching a lot of games, like it's an important skill set, getting the ball to the post at the right time in the right spot. And I probably wouldn't have learnt that if I didn't have Liz. It was so important to get that into her, and it was so vital for us to succeed when she had the ball. So I would say, passing specifically, post passing, pick and roll passing. But yeah, making shots in the exterior.
Hmm. And then, we've talked about some of it, but in terms of biggest areas for growth for you, what are the things that you look at in this year and obviously just moving forward in general that you think are the biggest things that you need to keep working on?
Yeah, just mid range and floaters. I think I hit some mid range last year, but it wasn't really the shot I was looking for per
Hmm.
se. But yeah, I know that getting to the rim is great, but for longevity, like I am short, so I'm gonna have to learn how to get quick ones off around the key and keep defenders on their toes for sure.
Yeah, no, definitely. And lastly, I because I was so in the weeds. So I was telling someone about this the other day. Like I normally get this to like 50 clips on synergy when I go through
Mhm.
and do my first run through, and I have to get it down to half. Otherwise, I'll be here for forever. Um, I cut out all the defense clips. I think you are. I want to hear what you think, but I think you are a good defender. I know, like, yes, you are 5'5", 5'6", which is inherently like that's something that you have to battle with as a pro, right? But I think you're pretty good getting around screens. Obviously, you play with a lot of functional strength.
Mhm.
So much of it is kind of like we're talking about with offense. It's being able to, like watching. I mean, you mentioned the Lynx. Like, they're one of the best teams I've ever seen at scram switching, and like I think that's going to be a big thing for you. Like being able to always find ways to be a plus, and hang in, with that. But where do you feel yourself as a defender right now?
Yeah, I mean, I would say cautious defender. Because as I said, when I went with my national team, I was face guarding, I was picking up full court. Obviously, FIBA rules is different. You could put your hands on it.
Yeah,
Growing up, I was doing the same thing, picking up full court, trying to be pesky. But I know my team now needs me on the court. And I do have that fire inside of me that I can be, pesky, but it comes with the risk of fouls. Um, and obviously, defense, it's effort. Like everyone can give a little more effort. So I think, it's definitely a big part. I know that I'm capable, a capable defender. I can be handsy at times. I can make some good reads. But I think, it's the cautious aspect of it right now because I know that my team needs to be on the court, not sitting on the bench with fouls.
yeah,
But as you said, like I'm 5'6", but what people don't know, like this summer I put on 10 pounds of muscle. I lost a bunch of weight, but put on muscle. I've always been strong, short statured, and I still have that foot speed. So I think getting used, especially in SEC play, is going to be great for me defensively because these girls are athletic and strong. So it's going to be good challenge for me this year to step up and make smarter defensive plays. Not be the one
Mhm.
that's always in someone's face and grill, but be annoying enough to the point where you're second guessing your decision making. And like you said, like switches. And I'm going to get caught sometimes this year against someone who's bigger and athletic, but that's going to be my life story for the rest of my career. So it's like, what am I going to do about it? You know?
Yeah. No, absolutely. I'm gonna be excited to watch that because it's gonna be, yeah, exactly what you're talking about. And I love pointing out, like you mentioned, the aspect of like being needing like you have to be on the court. Like
Yeah.
there's there's not a scenario where it is okay for you to get into foul trouble. So,
Yeah.
there that has to come into play with how you look at things, right? But let me pull up the films. We're gonna start. I want to talk through some stuff with your shot because I think, like we talked about, your shot is like, I mean, that is kind of the bread and butter of what really starts things for you. Before we dive into the film, I'd like to take a moment to thank our sponsor for this video and series, State Champs. State Champs is a community based streetwear brand with a brick and mortar sports coffee shop located in Kent, Ohio. Check out the link down below for a t shirt collab we did, their catalog of apparel and accessories, and stop on by in person to catch a game and a cup of coffee as the WNBA postseason unfolds this fall. Starting off, I just like, we're going to kind of like, the biggest thing with your shot for me is it's
Mhm.
versatile. I think a lot of people think with shots, it's just like, okay, well, you can shoot. But it's like there are so many ways in which you can shoot and do it effectively, which opens things up. And I think the number one is your catch and shoot ability. I don't know if you're aware how well you shot on catch and shoot threes this year. Do you have an idea on the number?
No.
So per synergy, if you took a catch and shoot shot without a dribble, you shot almost 49% from three. So that's pretty good. That's
Yeah.
that's pretty worth guarding. So I think like automatically, when I'm thinking about a point guard, especially now, like so often people will be like, like what happened to true point guards? Where are true point guards? I'm like, they don't exist because you have to be a threat with or without the ball. And
Yeah.
I think that's the big thing that stands out with you. You are such a threat without the ball that you have to always be guarded. Um, so, like, I mean, in terms of having that relationship with Kenny and building that stuff out, what has been maybe biggest for you in continuing to become that level of shooter?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, you have to be a threat. I can't make plays and I can't pass without having to score because otherwise people are just going to stand off of me. And I mean, as you said, true point guards, like we see a bunch of point guards that kind of just have to dribble around the top because they're not really that comfortable getting into that shot real quick. So it's vital for me. And the more that they suck out to me on three, the more I can penetrate and drop off to my post. Like it's the way that, and like Liz is a lot of credit to it. Like the way that I learned to shoot was because I had to be a threat to get her the ball.
Mhm. Yeah, no, absolutely. Also, as we're going through, if you want me to stop, go backwards, anything, let me know. It's a
Yeah.
conversation. So, um, but yeah, I think like obviously, so you have the catch and shoot, right? But then like you mentioned in terms of having players who come out to you and being able to make plays, I think your ability to relocate stands out a ton to me too, right? Because you can't just be like, obviously, like you're going to get spaced out um, in a possession sometimes, but being able to move, keep up with how the driving lane changes, and being able to just again continue to be a threat. Because so often, like if you just keep the ball moving and you
Yeah.
move your body, like you're going to get open for something.
Yeah, there will be breakdowns. And that's another big thing about our offense is finding the windows and the gaps to make a direct line pass. And these are the easiest shots I'm ever going to have in my career because I've driven, people have collapsed and they've lost their mind because someone's driving, turn your head. That's the easiest shot. Like I'm so open there. I rarely get those unless
Yeah.
it's evolved from a drive, kick, relocate.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's very rare that you get a wide open shot. But going off that too, then, because I think you start getting a little bit deeper into more complex stuff. You guys do a ton of stuff where, and I think it was, I mean, obviously something you've done the last couple of years, but it really took a step forward this year with doing things like setting things up with screen offs and you create the opportunity for miscommunication like this because obviously Kayla's tall and she can make plays on the inside if she gets the ball, but obviously
Mhm.
then she's cross screening for Liz. It's like there's so many moving parts in your offense. Like
Yep.
for all of these I've done, every player I've talked to in the ACC, I always make them watch clips of you guys because you run the most complex offense in the league
Yeah.
and they hate guarding it. But like this is why it's so difficult because there's so many things all moving together with a lot of effectiveness.
Yeah. And we ran this exact play against NC State, and it's the same situation. They just jump or predetermined. Like sometimes with me and Kayla, like that could be a read. Like a lot of the times, like he gives us options. Like
Mhm.
maybe we're running at the corner, I'm like, Kayla, this one we're bumping. Or like we have ones where Kayla and I would link arms and swing and twirl, and it confuses the defender even more. But that's just the chemistry we hadn't developed because, Kayla's such a good shooter too that we knew that whatever we did to set each other up, one of us was going to be open. So we had to do it well. Yeah.
No, definitely. And in terms of like being able to get set off of complex movements and stuff too, like I think it's a lot easier said than done. What has been
Mhm.
the biggest thing for you in getting so good at that? Because again, like it's being able to get set completely square, everything. Like I feel like your shot prep is something that's just continuing to get so much better.
Yeah, it's a lot of Coach Brooks. If you play that quote back, like we call that a
Hmm.
granny step. Like I plant one foot, I get my balance with the other one. I take like two mini steps to really get my balance, and I know I'll have time, but we call that a granny step. So I can granny into it to get myself really set. We practice off balance shots. We practice shots where I'm jumping into it, running into it, right, left, right. Right now, he's really got me on this 180 spin catch quick because there's just going to be situations where I'm going to have to get the ball off quick.
Yeah.
There's going to be situations where I have time to set up. So we work on different footwork, literally every individual I have.
Yeah.
Right now too, like we'll see if it sticks, but we're working on a few like fancy footwork threes. So it's at my size and stature, like I have to get the ball off in either way. So I have to be confident in whatever footwork I do. If it's something where I'm like, oh, this is weird or this doesn't feel right, then it's not gonna work. Like whatever I try, I'm gonna have to make it work.
Yeah, no, definitely. And a couple things off that. Like number one, I know you played Aussie rules football growing up, and like
Yeah.
I think so much of that is like it's fun watching you because I'm like I just totally see it, right? Like you
Mhm.
have to be so quick. Everything is like power. Everything is like shiftiness, and
Mhm.
I feel that so much in your game. And I think that's part of what helps make you such a great shooter. Like when you have that base from doing something that is not basketball related, I feel like it
Yeah.
helps open up so much for you.
Yeah. And like footy was like a game where it was like everything externally had to be quick and you had to be so aware of everything coming at you because you could get tackled and pinned in a matter of seconds.
Hmm.
But it's like as much as this was moving, like this had to be just like laser focused, and you still
Yeah.
had to be like you still had to kick that ball on the mark as clean and as perfect as possible with everything around you being chaotic. And to translate to my mid-range game, Coach Brooks and I are trying to work on that where I'm coming off the screen, but as soon as I go into my pull-up, I have to be laser focused.
Hmm.
So a lot of it is translatable, like as you said, like you see it. It's definitely something I have to get back to for sure for this year.
Yeah, and with that relationship with Kenny too, I feel like it's pretty rare to see like players who are able to have that level of player development relationship with their head coach. And
Mhm.
I know that's something that has been there since you got there and part of like your plan of going there. Um, can you elaborate more on just like what that relationship's been like and being able to work one on one together? Because I mean, it stands out obviously a ton and the trust that he puts in you and you have in him.
Yeah, it's been like unreal. I think when I committed, I knew that we were gonna work hard, but I never knew it was gonna evolve to this level. But it's daily. Like we talk daily. We send each other clips of NBA guys, WNBA girls doing moves, getting into their bag. Every time we have a workout, he's like, "I'll do a move," and he was like, "That'll work at this level, but we're thinking longevity. We're thinking this. So like change this tiny little thing." But the communication's so open. When I want to work on things, he listens, and when he wants me to work on things, like I listen. Obviously, he's my coach, but
Yeah,
he's just like it's just like a back and forth communication. And it's very rare to have that. And I think especially we've talked about it this day and age, like the loyalty and stuff like that, with like everything else happening with the NIL and stuff, like this relationship is so special because I don't think there could be ever anything like it for this long. Um Even my freshman year, like I could count on my hand like the nice things he said to me during the year.
yeah,
And like triple that, there was like the constructive but kind of mean ways. Like he figured out how to get to me and how to put a fire up my butt to make me better.
yeah.
And I'm grateful for it because if not, I'd be back in Australia probably.
Yeah. No, absolutely. It's cool to see that how everything is played out with that because yeah, exactly. Like it's certainly working. This one too. So getting into again, like looking at more complex stuff, like as you guys hit later on in the year, I feel like so much was trying to start you off the ball to get back onto the ball.
Mhm.
Um, and again, like just the cut slash shiftiness here is pretty sick. But like again, like just being able to get set, like there's some luck involved in that shot, but like you
Yeah.
also have to be a good shooter to make that go in. Um, but like coming off of stuff where it's so much movement, what again, like the footwork with that and getting accustomed to that, what is that like for you?
Yeah, I mean, we practice this once again all the time, and obviously it was a bank, but we do have a lot of sets like that where I'm like faking screens coming off and then coming back off of screens. Like it sounds crazy, but a lot of it has to do with like the swag and the confidence you have in it, like selling it, and it's all like acting.
Mhm.
If I wasn't acting like I was going to screen Tilly, she wouldn't have jumped. If I, hadn't pretended to screen and backdoored, like it's just keeping them moving as much as me. And I think something that really resonated with me 2 years ago, I was at Kelsey Plum's first camp, and she was kind of like honing the message that like she's going to be the fittest. Like you might shoot better than her, you might do whatever, but she's always going to be the fittest. She's always going to be the one that like will run someone into the ground, and she's fit, and it's annoying, I'm sure, for other people to play
Yeah.
with. So I kind of took that mentality, and I can sell screens. Like nothing in my setup is going to be lazy because I need it. So I'm going to need to be the fittest. I'm going to need to do extra cuts and extra changes of directions to get myself open. And that this is a prime example of that. I think I did 3 different cuts to get one shot off.
Yeah, I think that's correct. And it's fun too because it's cool mentioning Kelsey because I think similarly to her, you are like really underrated as a screener. Like you're so good because like, and it's I think so often people think of screens and everything's like, oh, it's got to be bone crunching, it's got to be set, but like
Yeah.
you're such a tough screener because if you fly out the three, you can't you can't avoid that. But also so often you're screening for Liz or somebody who can come in and make an impact in the post and like, okay, if we switch that, we're kind of fucked.
Yeah.
And if we don't, we're also maybe kind of fucked because who's going to
Gonna
catch
hit
out
you.
up to you on the
Yeah.
like on the outside and like so being able to do that again when you talked about the next level, I think like to me at least, I think one of the things that like when you watch the Aces play, you watch the top 2 or 3 teams, and especially them in the Liberty, they have a ton of like movement shooting and ability to play with that. That's the biggest dearth of stuff in the league, in my opinion. Like there is not high level off the dribble and just movement shooting the way that
Mhm.
there is at other levels of basketball yet. And I think that's where it's continuing to shift to. So like being able to
Yeah.
do that is big time.
Yeah.
This one too, just kind of coming off a screen and coming sideways, like getting into that side step.
Yeah.
Get bumped a little bit too, but you're still able to kind of keep on route.
Absorb it. Yeah. And like that's another thing. Like right here, I go right left into my shot,
Mhm.
like left right left. So it's just working different footwork, but like back to the screening, like you say, like a screen to me is kind of like a pass. Like it's like me getting an assist without giving you the ball.
Yeah.
But like yeah, if Liz hadn't clipped her, then I wouldn't have been that open. And yeah, I'm just gonna have to fight. Like she does clip me, but it's like I got to stay on balance and take those hits. It's like a cat, but I'm always gonna have to learn my lesson.
But got 9 lives at least, so,
Right,
or however many fouls you get, so,
right.
same thing. But, yeah, I mean, it's interesting, like you mentioned too with that in terms of, using it as a pass because I think that's such a great point, like, screening to me is like it's people only think of, like, scoring and,
Yeah,
quote, unquote, "playmaking" as a level of creation, but like
mhm,
cutting and being able to sell yourself like that is too, because
yeah.
just being able to do anything that creates space consistently is creation,
Anything.
in my opinion.
And like speaking on like the finals, like you watch Seattle, like the way that Gabby Williams cuts, like that's not nothing but a little extra effort,
Yeah,
and it collapses everybody. Like it's just yeah, screening and cutting is very underrated. You have to be very smart with when, where, and why.
yeah, no, absolutely. Um, I have to ask too, in terms of like when you're in a tournament setting, like so when you guys played, obviously, I think that was Cayman Islands Classic against
Mhm.
Kansas, um, and having your legs right for a tournament after like obviously, I mean, you guys had a crazy travel schedule this last year, and it will be the same this year, but like how does that what is your prep like the night before or day of to make sure that your legs are still good to go for the next day?
Yeah,
Because I think especially for you, like, I mean, you probably logged the most miles out of any player in the ACC, so
yeah.
or ACC last year, but like, how do what does that look like for you in terms of making sure that you still have your body good to go?
Yeah, I think last year a lot of it, like I feel good when I elevate my legs a lot. Like obviously,
Yeah.
like the blood flow, and I'll do that pre-game. I just sit with my legs against a wall. Kind of looks a little crazy, but it's also a lot of it mental, and that was mental last year. We travel a lot, but who isn't traveling a lot? Like
Yeah,
who hasn't practiced the day before? Who hasn't? There's always going to be situations, and as soon as you start giving in up here, that's when all goes kaput. But I think turning this year, the shift, the way that I'm looking after my body is in a way that I never have before. I would say that I've been very lucky with the way that my body has recovered. I don't know if it's because I'm more muscular or shorter or what.
yeah,
Have been lucky in the past, but I think this year just being really intentional with it. Like I'm seeing more doctors, I'm doing more rehab, I'm doing more recovery, I'm doing more prehab, um, doing way more activation than I ever have. And I think that's something that I'm gonna have to learn to carry over in future. I'm not getting any younger and I'm not having any less miles on my legs. And as you said, I've logged a lot. I think I averaged maybe 35 to 38 minutes a game last year. Like it's a lot. And
yeah,
it's a lot in my position when I have to push and transition and find and relocate and then come off another screen. So I think, as much as it is mental, I'm trying to take a further step in my, preparation and recovery this year. To make sure that I am reliable and my legs aren't sore because this can always work. Like my heart and my lungs are always going to work. My legs, they're the ones that get sore. So it's what can I do mentally to push through or prep.
yeah. No, it's big hearing that you're getting into that aspect too, because I don't know, it's like when I'm only a couple years older than you, but like I just think of like when I was in that spot, I was like, oh, I could just like literally roll out of bed, I'll be
Yep.
good, get in the ring, I'm fine. But like now, I'm 27, and I'm like, whew, you wake up some mornings, and I'm like, "Ah, my dog like slept a little bit too close to be on my bed, and it's gonna take me like
Yeah.
a half hour to work this out. If I don't,
Right.
it might throw off my day. Like you don't really think about it until it happens, but it's like, yeah, that stuff is so important in being able to be at your best physically. So yeah, I love hearing that. Um, Getting into like we talked about with isolation earlier, I think being able to showcase, like I think you're able to get it off in multiple different ways, right? Like this year, I love it because you get closed out to and then you immediately get into it. Like there's just no hesitation with it. And I
Yeah.
think that immediately puts Madison Hayes back an extra step or two, and that's what keeps you wide open here.
Mhm.
Um, I wanted to ask, like, off of this, in terms of um like, I mean, you have obviously like you talk about confidence and swagger and being able to make a shot from anywhere. But what is like conversation like with you and coach, or just kind of internally on like deciding what is a good shot and being
Yeah.
able to kind of maintain that?
I mean, any good shot's a good shot if you make it. But I think,
Yeah,
like once again, like we practice on that, like those three dribbles, like him
yeah,
and I will work on and be like, all right, Harden, like the James Harden. So I'm just mixing up the tempo in my between the legs to get it into my shot.
hmm,
But as long as I take it with confidence and it's not like I've just chucked it up there, like it's a good shot. And I take this shot, make or miss. Maybe next time she comes a little bit closer to me, and now I'm ready to go downhill. And now all hell breaks loose, and I'm ready to create. So it's as long as I have the confidence that I look like I'm knowing what I'm doing, like it opens up so much more. You can
yeah,
tell when someone shoots it just to shoot it. So it's
yeah.
like,
Yes, very much so. But no, I like you saying that too because I think so much of being able to create is like just not thinking about it and doing
yeah.
it and being confident in it. Um,
I actually think in that NC State game from that same wing, we had ball screen situations. Is this in the third? I think it is.
yeah,
Yeah.
mhm,
And we're coming back, and two times. One time I got to the basket for a layup, and the next time I think I kicked it. But same situation. Like she came up to me for the next couple of times. I had driving lanes.
yep. Yeah, no, I think I have those clips in there. I can't remember off the top of my head, but we'll see in a sec.
Yeah.
This one too, yeah. So getting into looking at your ability to just kind of pull on switches, which is something that I think you really excelled at this year. Um, like even like against mobile bigs, I think you were so good at just displace with handle, get downhill. And then when we talk about getting into that mid-range stuff again, like this is the
Mhm.
stuff that's really big because you get her going one direction, and then you're able to stop on a dime and get that easily.
And this is like what I was saying with the consistency. Like because I'm so fast, people are going to go leaning. Like if I can stop on a dime, completely focus and lock it in the basket, like it's going to be so beneficial because she's reaching. She don't want to go at that.
Yeah. No, definitely not. And there's like you can't really help from anywhere on this either too. So it's like, what do you
Yeah.
do? Um, yeah, and then this one, I wanted to ask too before we even watch this clip. Playing a team like Louisville and like Duke, who I think both play kind of similarly, and like they just want to put you on an island. They're going to take away every outlet you have, and you have to play one on one, which
Mhm.
can really just rattle some teams.
Yeah,
But I think it's something that you were awesome at this year,
thank you.
obviously. But like, yeah, but like what, especially in how that impacts your vision on court and what you can do. I mean, how does that kind of change up what your approach is and kind of how you go about attacking?
Um, it's kind of tricky because it's one of those things where it's, if you try and think too much, then you're gonna think
Yeah.
too much. But like right here, like I have Olivia Cochran on me, and obviously it's a massive mismatch, and it's just I'm looking at who everyone else has. Like maybe if I didn't have a shot, like I know with Liv, I could probably still get downhill, but the chances of her blocking me is high. So I'm probably
Yeah.
going to be like, who's on the wing? So it's like Coach Brooks always talks about taking a snapshot and a picture of like what's happening around me. So when I get in that one-on-one situation, like I take a quick pick of, okay, maybe I had Liv and Carly and then Kayla in this corner, and I know I have Liz on this block. So
Hmm.
it's like that's sorted. Like if I drive and create, I know my options. But obviously it is shot first because if I have that attack mindset, it creates so many more opportunities. So it's definitely difficult to like try and think through that process, but
Yeah.
it like I've been in many of these situations before, so I just have the trust and confidence in that.
No, absolutely. And when I'm so for reference in playmaking stuff, I pulled like specifically from two games. One of them was Duke, and yeah, like seeing the playmaking windows, I think is going to be fun to talk through because, like you
Mhm.
talk about, I think so much of it is like being able to process it and see it on court.
Yeah,
Um, right here too, looking at just being able to again break down off the dribble after kind of it's I wouldn't even say it's forcing a switch because Louisville wants to switch and just
yeah,
do that anyways because they play so like sized. Um,
mhm,
but right here, yeah, just being able to take it, get to the rack, um, easy stuff.
yeah. And I think at some point too, like sometimes you just got to get to the basket. Like sometimes you really just got to draw a foul and just like send a warning, like you get a foul, you can't take that back. Like either I'm going to the line or you have a foul now, so you're just gonna step off. Like it's playing the little mind games, and that's something I'm kind of slowly growing into. The
Yeah,
older I grow, it's like
yeah.
okay, the only way you're gonna get off me is if you get a foul, or like if you keep fouling, like go ahead, then you'll be off. Like
Yeah, getting on your Chris Paulish a little bit. Yeah, I mean, well, because that's one of the things I wanted to point out too. I think that's one of the biggest areas for growth that you could have as well is like getting to the foul line. And I think
yeah,
you did it a little bit more as the year went on. But like that's going to be kind of something that you're focused on this year.
mhm,
Good. Because
yeah,
yeah, continuing to improve your efficiency with that and like just being able to open anything free points is free points, man. Like
yeah,
I
easy
want
money.
those. Um, Here too, I think it's fun because like we pull that clip with Liv is similar. Like you get her to the side, but I think Delafano does a much better job playing it just because when
Yeah,
you're
she's
quicker and
fun.
longer, that makes it hard. Um, and you get to that floater, and I think again we saw that more as the year went on for you, but like getting to that shot, I think is going to be so big in terms of
Yeah,
continuing to open stuff up in the middle because
yeah,
like especially with this Baylor team, like I mean they were really good at just trying to keep everything in front. They play pretty strong. They're really quick. I
yeah,
mean, they gave Juju, I think, played her most. It was probably the most comfortable. I think Juju Watkins was all of last year was playing against Baylor, and like they
yeah.
were just so good at being able to, again, put people on an island and make them uncomfortable at times.
Yeah. And I mean, this is gonna be huge for me, like, this year and next year, like, the length of people, like, using the backboard as my best friend, and, like,
Yep.
being able to create a little bit of separation, like, I have the tiniest sidestep there for the floater, so, yeah, like you said, it's just balance and being able to take a hit and still being able to recenter myself is gonna be massive.
Hmm. So this one is kind of going off that. So and again, talking about Duke because like I just think Duke was like you
Yeah,
you
defensively, they're
yeah, they're
annoying.
difficult. You can correct me if you feel otherwise, but I think Alucia Conwa was the player who probably gave you the toughest guard this
Oh,
entire
yeah, for
season.
sure.
Yeah.
And she who got defensive player of the year? Was it in the ACC? Like, she's one of the hardest
Um,
guards I've had to play against defensively because she's so long and erratic. And I think
yeah,
even in this game at the end in the fourth quarter, I think I hit a three, and she still was able to contest it after going and helping and kind of like she shouldn't have helped because it did give me the shot, but the fact that she was still able to come back and contest as close as she did, she's like a freak athlete, and she just
yeah,
has that erratic nature to her that's just like difficult.
yeah. Her ability to mirror is like I think it was just about the best in the country last year.
Yeah.
Like, and her being a freshman was like mind blowing
Yeah.
to me because just the effort. And she averaged like 7 or 8 boards a game at
Yeah.
like 5'11". It's like, all right, dude,
Yeah.
she's gonna be fun to watch. But point being, yeah. So looking at this, because like kind of meshing that with the last clip, I think when I look at again, like with this stuff, again, one on it's hard because again, Alucci is like she's so long and able to get back into this. But I think when
Yeah.
you look at that mid range, like I think earlier on in the year, like you're so quick, right? And you're able to get to the rim whenever you want. But it's kind of like we talked about earlier of like being able to mix and match that of like, all right, if I have some pacing, if I change some things up,
Yep.
and then I think you get to this clip, and like this is like when we talk about like bringing that all together, right?
Mhm.
I think you use the hezzy here, and that gets you right to the rim because I think right here, like again, you're fast enough you can get to the rim if you want, but getting to
Mhm.
that hezzy is what opens up the layup because
Yeah.
otherwise, I think this is probably much more contested and just difficult to get to.
Yeah. Even that Duke one, like the 5 sold out so much. Like if I had a hezzy taken one more dribble, I would have had the corner. Like Kayla could have gone to the corner right here. I could have hezzied because she still gives me space baseline.
Hmm.
I do a hezzy early. I get around 2 of them, and I have a 3-point shooter in the corner. Like yeah, it's definitely the use of pace when I get in the lane is going to be massive.
Yeah. And especially in like kind of repping that out and feeling that, like obviously I know you can rep those things out in like individuals and doing stuff in drills and in practice, but like in feeling that in game, what is that like for you and kind of like getting to that and seeing that more? Because again, it felt like you were really able to more later on in the year.
Yeah, I think obviously just experience and studying the other team, what they bite on, and obviously the more I shoot, the more people are going to bite on hesitations or sidesteps. So it's what happens after that. But it's so crazy too, because like I said with my individual with Coach Brooks, like we work on stuff like that, and it's always like, okay, like that's good, but like, is it going to work next level? So it's kind of like this constant battle in my mind of always trying to get better. So I feel like I've never really mastered it until I get in a game and I do it, and I'm like, oh, kind of worked. And then it's
Yeah.
like, no, it's like the mental games that we play, to keep getting better.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think like that's the fun part because like sometimes you just like you do something, you're like, I don't know how I did it, but it
Yeah.
happened. And looking at this clip too, so like I think this game is really fun for me to watch in terms of just like again, like I think and especially like referencing more of like what I think this year is gonna be like for you at times as you try and figure things out. Like I felt like so much of Notre Dame's game plan was take Liz out as much as
Oh,
possible,
it
but make
was.
you just like put you again, take away your biggest outlet, right?
Yeah. And
Um,
a lot of the time with the screens too, like, Hannah is great. She's a great defender, but I had never played people in the ACC when, a guard hit a screen that peeled off and stayed with the 5. So I think a
yeah,
couple of times in this game I kicked it to Liz, but Hannah got it because it wasn't even a matter of trying to fight to get back. They just switched it. Like we hadn't really played against anyone that did that. But yeah, like you said, they took Liz out of it. They covered our screens really well. It got to the point, I think, at the end of this game where I was just going downhill and pulling up mid
yeah,
range.
yeah. Well, no, because right here too, because like I like handling ice like this because I think so often when somebody gets ice, they're like, oh, I just need to take it. Like, no, you got to try and make them fight it
Yeah,
and open something else up because if you're just taking what the defense gives you, like again, like I think that's the best you can do in terms of making that work. Obviously, get the ball out, and Kayla's going to make those more often than not.
yeah,
Um, looking at this one too, I think opening stuff up baseline is one of the things that you're really good at using. Obviously, reject this from like guard to guard, um, and just kick that. Like I know it doesn't end up being doesn't end up going in, but I think just in terms of like being able to go baseline, keep things
hmm
alive like that. I feel like you got so good at starting to like Nash dribble this year and keeping
hmm
your dribble alive just in general when you got into the paint.
hmm yeah. There's always gonna, I think, like a couple of times too. I'll drive and I'll come back out and I'll start dancing on the 3-point line. Like if one door is closed, it doesn't mean that everyone's closed. Maybe I'm driving looking for Liz, but they cover it so well. So it's like you got to keep going because if I pick it up, then we're all cooked.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Um, yeah, because I think again, so much of like being a guard is like, can I just keep my dribble alive and make something happen? Which is like literally this play. Like you mentioned, Hannah probably has the best hands in the country, which
Yeah,
is wild. Again, this freshman class. But they're icing, able to get to the screen, cut middle, like just
yeah,
being able to keep the dribble alive like that against pressure. Like again, when I think like you talked about with everything pro level, I'm like being able to do that is like okay, because you think about what ball pressure is going to look like at the next level.
Yeah, it's gonna be different. Yeah.
Is so big in opening that up.
Yeah. It's like a kind of a fine line between not over dribbling, but definitely taking what they're given. Like if they want to push up, like why wouldn't you blow by? But now
Yeah.
it's like don't want to be doing too many crossovers, like just get downhill.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Um, and then yeah, like we look at with talking about sort of what you mentioned with that clip. Obviously, you get to the mid range here, but like you talked about, you get that peel switch here, and that is
Yeah.
very much like again next level stuff in terms of what it's going to look like because so often this is somebody's fighting over, and then you have that pocket pass for Liz, and they just
Yep.
like totally took that away in this game.
Yep.
So like when you again like rewatching that game and kind of coming off of it, what was that like in kind of prepping for like, okay, what if I see this again? What does this look like?
Yeah, I think because we play them again in the tournament, ACC tournament. Personally, I played much better.
Yeah,
Team wise, obviously, Liz was injured, so it was definitely different. But learned so much from this particular game just because it was so different than anything that we had played in the ACC. Maybe Duke was the closest thing to it, but I think that Duke was a bit more physical. Notre
yeah,
Dame was physical, but they still played smarter, and they were still making me think way more. So I learned a lot from this game because, like you said, like the peel switches and Hannah has really good hands and just like coming off the screens and changing my angles off the screen. I think this specific game, Citron, I want Citron on my team. She's an incredible player. Like she's
she is.
insane. Defensively, this game, she got over way too many screens. I didn't really make contact shoulder to shoulder. I think in that tournament game, I was a little bit better creating angles off the screen and making her get hit. So this game was a lot of teaching in one for sure.
Yeah. No, when I talked with Sony earlier, she was like, "Yeah, I hate guarding her so much."
She's like I want to team up with her sometime in the
Yeah,
future. She gives everything.
yeah.
Defense, she's the smoothest.
It's
Yeah,
rare to find a player like 6'1" that can do what she does.
yeah, it's her place. It's like her world.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But like then, because you mentioned again, like in terms of like continuing to get downhill and stuff, I love again like pulling this out a little bit and then going because if you just try and go right now, like it's gonna end up being like we've looked at in general, like okay, cool, or that they're gonna peel switch it, or they're gonna get over, and I don't have anything. So being able to just force a baseline and it ends up not being a made shot, but like I think just being able to continue getting downhill, again using that baseline. I love like jumping out of bounds too. It sounds I some coaches hate that shit.
Hate
I
it. They
think
hate it.
to me, like if you do not have something, but you have that many eyes on you and you can create an open pass, like that's not an open pass if you don't jump out of bounds. Like
Yeah.
obviously,
You
like we've
more
talked about, it's a
space.
fine line in every way, but I think
Yeah.
being able to do that is big and just kind of opening up windows that aren't always there.
Yeah.
So yeah, closing out with a couple of things from the Duke game. Um, this was like probably the most that you saw hedges this year, I think.
Yeah.
Like they
And they
really. Oh, go ahead.
they hedged so well too because I think Syracuse tried to hedge, but they always left that gap. I think I split that hedge like 4 times that game.
Yeah,
I'm always looking to split. I
yeah,
don't. I mean, there's no secret. So they really built their hedges because they kind of made it a little skinnier.
yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, they're so tight with that. I think like part of the hard part with Duke this year, like, I mean, obviously they have a ton of great lengthy defenders, but their fives were so good. Like
Mhm.
Emsbo and Brown were both like they're mobile, both 6'6". Like I just and then obviously like so I like this one because just in general, like when you talk about things you're going to see at the next level, like I think of watching like the Sun play when I watch like Duke,
Mm.
with their length, their physicality, their
Oh,
ability to kind of rotate and keep things on the back end. But like that's the play that's open, like
mhm.
that's what you can create because it's a good tag up on the backside. I mean, there's help waiting right here too. Like they're just so aggressive in playing in
Yeah,
the gaps.
yeah.
But like, I mean, yeah, just get that cross back to the slot and it's an open drive.
Mhm.
This is probably my favorite pass you made this entire year. What's kind of going through your head on this one? Because I love like the fake to get into it as well, because you sell the five on it a little bit.
Yeah. Like initially, I think I probably had it a little earlier. So like, but then I think I kind of saw like like Ashlyn Jackson, like she's talk about athletes, like she can get
Yeah.
to that. So I probably honestly probably did have it there if Tilly had a rose a little bit more. But
Mhm.
like in seeing that, like as I said with Coach Brooks, like I took a snapshot. I knew she was there. So once I got a little bit deeper and they collapsed even more, like I knew she was gonna be there. So
Yeah.
I think it was just all in the preparation. Obviously, it's unsuspecting too. Like she got caught off guard because I was so deep as well. So
Yeah. And the placements, like, that's I don't know, you can't place that really any better because it's right into her shooting pocket.
yeah. Yeah, a lot of it too, like even just with Coach Brooks, we'll joke about it because he's played point guard and he's had time where he had to pass it to people. But like if I have confidence in myself that I'm gonna give you the ball in your shooting pocket every single time with the right, like I know people are fussy with the creases and they have to be
Yeah.
lined up. Like, if I can give that to you perfect, like there's no excuse for you to that pass, the
Yeah.
pass is gonna
Exactly. I
go.
mean, like, you can't complain about the creases when that's the defense, right? Like, how am I supposed to get you the creases? Come on now.
Right. But like that's
Um,
something I focus on. Like if I'm giving a pass, I know I can control a lot of it. Like I'm trying to give you the most perfect pass to not let anything mess up in the process of it. Because we like once again with this team, like we had shooters that were great shooters but couldn't really necessarily create their own shot.
yeah.
So it was like people were closing out so hard. So I had to give Matilda the ball crisp. I had to give Kayla the ball crisp. So there was between A and B of them catching and shooting, like there was nothing in between that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And then I think part of what was really fun in watching this game is how much you guys progressed the offense to kind of counter what they were doing defensively. So, like, obviously here, like, they're hedging and they're trying to be really aggressive on ball screen. So, okay, cool. Throw them in an empty corner and make them work that way. And I also just like I mean, Liz was so good with angling screens
Oh
and
my god,
everything
yeah.
she did to open that up. But like, yeah, I mean, it's the hard part because again, watching this, like, there isn't an open window to like make a play coming off
Possible.
this. Like I think everybody would be like, "Oh, pass to the corner." I'm like, "No, they're going to probably intercept that." And even if you do pass to the corner, okay, cool, their defense resets. So like
Yeah.
right here, it's like it's kind of mid-range or bust because
Yeah.
again, like you mentioned with Ashley, I mean, she's so good at being able to recover and stuff. But
Yeah.
yeah, and I think that just speaks more to like, okay, being able to get that shot off in any way, shape, and form, like we talked about. Like it makes it so much harder to throw out these kind of defenses at you when you can do that.
Yeah. And I think leading up to this game too, like because we played was this Duke game was later. We played Duke earlier in the
Yeah.
season. I think it
Yeah.
got hit. But like the way they hedge, like at sometimes you just gotta make the ref call a foul. Like if they're hedging hard and they're using their hips, like you just gotta attack that hip and something's gonna happen from it. So like this is what happened here. Instead of kind of being complacent with it, I just dropped a shoulder and attacked the hip and it just opened her up as well.
Yeah. So yeah, this one's just looking at kind of getting into the paint and coming back out again because you're able to again just like you maintain a couple defenders, get more eyes on you. That
Mhm.
opens up the shot. Um, like I think being able to like we talked about, like mixing up change of pace, but also being able to do that just keeps things alive.
Yeah.
And so much of being a guard is like, can I just keep things moving, keep things alive? And yeah. And then last clip. This is one of the things I wanted to ask about because you talked about it a little bit earlier in terms of like how much you guys communicated stuff throughout the year. You guys started going to like, especially late in the fourth quarter. It was like you and Liz would like ghost these screens instead. So it's like, okay, cool. We're bringing your five into action, but then you cannot really do anything with it because we take away the hedge. Because if you try and hedge, first off, you can't really hedge that anyways. But like if you do, then Liz is wide open on a roll or a slip.
Yeah.
Was that like a coaching staff thing, or was that something that you and Liz talked about?
This game specifically was coaching staff thing,
Okay.
and I think if I don't think I'm wrong, but I think we got a bit in trouble in this because it wasn't really a go screen. Like she didn't really set up the screen
Hmm.
because she didn't really get their five biting for the hedge.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, like that's coaching staff. Like our two-man game was such a vital part of our success last year. So it's like, and Liz and I were so smart and so like accepting to change that you put in a play in the timeout, we're gonna run it. Like we know what we're doing. And to be quite honest, we probably did work on it in the little 10, 15-minute block we had every day together.
Hmm.
But yeah, a bunch of it is just knowing Liz, knowing the coaches, them picking up on little things. Because yeah, like you said, like they're hedging and I think a couple of times it might have worked, or maybe it was the first game we played. But yeah, ghost screens were definitely massive because I think I ghost screened her, and oh no, that was 2 years ago. against UNC on her buzzer beater.
Yeah.
I think I kind of ghost screened her. So it's like the same situation. People panic because it's like, is it a screen? Is it a switch? Is it like, what is it?
Yeah, no, I mean, just being able to I think that always goes underrated, like, there are so many different ways to screen that
Mhm.
open up different things, and yeah, and you guys were elite with it.
Yeah.
Well, Georgia, that is it clip-wise. I think just to close out, first and foremost, like, I just really appreciate you doing this. It was really dope to kinda dive into your mind a little bit and see how you see things. Just looking ahead to this year and in general and what this year can be like, kind of setting the tone at Kentucky. What are you maybe most excited about, on and off the court?
Yeah, like on for sure is just, SEC talent and the teams. Like I played against Kentucky 2 years ago, 3 years ago, but we played against LSU and Tennessee pretty regularly.
Yeah,
Those games were always so intense and physical and just a different level. And you see the girls that play in the SEC, the ones that get drafted, they're pretty much the ones that kind of stick. You want to talk about Aaliyah Boston, you want to talk about Rakia Jackson, like their games have translated because they're just good athletes and good fit. So I'm excited to play against that caliber of talent. And also just being challenged, as I said before, like intellectually. And I know it's always cliche to kind of be like, learn your teammates, but no, it's like it's different because we have to win. Like we don't want to come in this year and be like, we're in a rebuild phase because we have the pieces and the power to make a mark early. So I don't really want that excuse of the rebuild. But off the court, like I said, like laying into like the rehab and the facilities we have now, like the more habits I get in now, because I have more, options. I have more doctors. I have more, places to go and get healthy. Getting into those habits now is definitely going to be vital for many years to come.
no, absolutely. Well, Georgia, I'm very appreciative of your time. To everyone watching, be sure to keep up with all things Kentucky women's basketball. Be excited for what Georgia's going to do this year and in her future. And most importantly, enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks for having me.